Well, hey everybody, it's Sandy and welcome back to my channel dedicated to helping you advocate for your own health one topic at a time. So guys, today I want to talk about these new vaccine boosters that are coming out, the Omicron specific booster. And the genesis of this video is actually a conversation that came up in the Facebook group the other day. So let me just give that a plug, which is, though Sandy's DIY Health Advocacy does have a Facebook page, and you can head on over there and ask to join the group. And then you get a little more of an interactive discussion, and people post all kinds of, questions, suggestions, announcements, and things like that. And there's often fruitful discussion. So I really like it, and I like the way it's growing. And speaking of growing, my channel is also growing nicely, so thank you for that as well. If you have not subscribed yet to my channel but you like my content, I really hope you'll consider subscribing. Those of you who've been with me for a while know that I don't really load my channel up with all kinds of affiliate links. In fact, when I review products, for example, that have to do with people's health, safety, well-being, and whatnot, I very often buy the products on my own, but whether I do that or not, my links are not affiliate links, so I don't get any commissions off of them. I don't want bias when it comes to people's health, and I don't want to prey on people's fears. So my way forward is really just to grow my channel. So for all those of you who have subscribed, I just want to thank you so much, and I hope that those of you who haven't will consider doing so. Yeah, so a conversation came up about, well, whether to boost and when to boost, and I said I was going to do a video on it, and I kind of thought, well, I could really break this down into some very logical, data-driven points, but unfortunately, there's actually very little data out there, raw data, in terms of exactly how effective these new variant-specific boosters are. So it's a little bit hard to talk on that level, although they are designed specifically to target Omicron variants. And of course, any targeting of the Omicron variant has got to be better than the boosts that we have available to us at this point. So these new ones will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. And yes, I'm really looking forward to these coming out. And I do think it's a good idea to get boosted. But I guess when I really distilled this down into what I'm going to say on video, it really boils down to just a couple of things. One is the mixing and matching issue that seems to come up a lot in the Facebook group, and I'm just going to give you my thoughts on that. And then the other one is about timing, but it really all kinds of other factors, and I'm going to call that category nuance. I'm going to talk about that second. First I'm going to talk about what I just said. Oh, sorry. And I'm doing like my videos now without editing, so yeah, let's see how this goes. So first I'm just going to talk about the issue of mixing and matching, and then second we'll get to what I call nuance, which is sort of an umbrella for trying to keep track of all the different variables, because there are never just one or two. There's usually a lot of different variables in real life situations, and you have to be able to kind of assign them their relative weights and then distill it down into one decision. So I'm going to get to that in just a moment. In terms of mixing and matching, I personally am a fan of mixing and matching vaccine platforms. Now, that said, I got Moderna for my initial series and my boosts. So yeah, who am I to speak? But it just so happened that between the Moderna and the Pfizer, the Moderna kind of came out the winner with actually the original, the vaccines that targeted the Wuhan strain and the earlier strains up to and including Delta. And I didn't really see a reason to switch. The boosts were still a higher dose than Pfizer. I don't know if it was really the dose that was the issue or if it was something else specific about the Moderna vaccine, but it seemed to be a little bit more effective. That said, if I hadn't had Moderna available to me, readily available to me in my area, I certainly would have done Pfizer, and I never would have thought about it. Now, in terms of getting a boost, I might do the Pfizer. I'll be interested to see if we can see some real raw data. And I'm actually a little bit skeptical of that. But, I think people could correctly say that anything Omicron targeted is better than what we have now. I'm not sure whether I will get Pfizer or Moderna, or if I'll even have a choice about it. If I don't have a choice about it, I'm fine with that as well. All things being equal, I feel like I've done well with Moderna. I might stay with Moderna unless I see some really good compelling reason. Now, that said, mixing is often a really good idea with these, and the reason is that because each one of these is engineered a little bit differently, and there is some evidence that your body, your immune system sees this thing from different angles, and it's sort of like seeing a picture of somebody that you're going to want to recognize later, and versus seeing several pictures of that person. You're going to want to recognize them when you get to a party or something, right? Who's going to parties these days? Not me. But the more pictures you get of something, the more thorough an idea you have of the concept or the image or whatever it is. So I think there is something to that, where the immune system can see this at different angles and in different ways, and it kind of covers more bases. That said, back when Delta was raging, so that's like a year ago now, they were looking at the data on boosting, and what yielded the highest antibody response was people who had had a Pfizer initial series or J&J and then got Moderna. It seemed like topping it off with Moderna gave you a huge jump. Now, is that really because Moderna gave you such a huge jump, or is it because the other ones, especially J&J, didn't really give you enough of an antibody response in the first place? I don't really know. So I'm sorry I don't have a really straightforward answer about what one should do, except for that in general, I do think mixing makes some sense, but I would not lose any sleep over the Pfizer versus Moderna, just like I didn't in the previous times that when we had vaccines and boosts. I think they're both excellent vaccines. If I was given a choice at the moment, I guess I would choose Moderna. So on to the more difficult part of the process in terms of when to boost. I was a little irritated. I read an article yesterday, and far be it for me to criticize, the director of the CDC, but, everyone else is, so I will too. And basically she just said, look, if you're due for a boost, get your boost. And it was an article where she was discussing these new Omicron variant specific boosters coming out. And I thought, well, that's kind of a disservice to some people, right? I mean, there may be some people that really just need the boost now. It kind of depends on all kinds of factors, and I'm going to talk about that here. But there are some people who are, perfectly able to lie low for a little while, and just a few more weeks might buy them an Omicron specific booster. Whereas if you get a regular one of the boosters that's available right now, you won't be eligible for another boost for probably at least 4 months. So, then you'll sort of miss out on that Omicron specific one. Of course, there might be something else by then that we don't have a vaccine for, but yeah, don't even get me started on that. So I think that what it really boils down to is that we have to have some tolerance for nuance, and we have to be able to decide for ourselves and for our kids and, for any loved ones that need help with it. We have to be able to keep track of more than one variable at a time and distill it down into one decision. And I can't really expect the CDC to do that for me, or the FDA, or anybody else. But likewise, I don't like them saying, well, then they toss in the towel and then they just give a very oversimplified recommendation that, really doesn't serve most people. When there is an Omicron specific booster coming out in like 3 weeks, I don't think it serves most people to tell them, well, if you're due for a booster, just get your booster now. Okay, not really. So I think you have to look at a few variables. One is, what is your risk level, your risk tolerance, like the risk issue that you bring to the table? Are you severely immune compromised yourself? Are you going into settings that you just can't avoid, where you are at some kind of elevated risk of catching COVID? Are you unable to wear an N95 when you're in indoor settings? What's the infection rate like in your area? Okay, now that's not something you bring to the table, but the infection rate in your area really does inform, how risk adverse you should be. For me, it does, because that's kind of there's a randomness about that, but it really does inform how much virus you're going to bump into, right? So if one person out of every 1,000 is infected, and by the way, whatever the infection rate is in your area, assume it's like 10 times higher, right? Because a lot of these are not being recorded by the state health departments anymore. People are home testing, or some people aren't getting tested at all. Some people asymptomatic, whatever. So it's really higher, but nonetheless, you can see when it goes up and you can see when it goes down. And I think that the waves and the peaks and the valleys in the chart do tell you something, and those I think are real. So, if you're in a setting where in your community, one person out of every 1,000 has the virus right now, whereas, maybe in 3 months it's going to be 100 people out of every 1,000, or 3 months ago it was that, then, that's a very different situation. Those are very different from each other, right? So how likely are you to bump into some virus? It's not perfect, but it's one of the key indicators that guides public health recommendations, even when people should mask. Again, don't get me started on that one either, because I just think we should all be masking with good masks. Like, I only wear an N95 these days, but that is still part of the equation when the public is guided in terms of necessary mitigation efforts. So the higher the infection rate, the more we all really need to engage in mitigation. So a higher infection rate in your area definitely means more risk. Now, does that mean that everybody who lives in an area that has a high infection rate should run out and get a booster right now and not wait for the Omicron variant? I I don't know, not really. What if you're somebody who's, able to be home? You work remotely or you're retired or whatever it is, and you're perfectly comfortable at home. You have groceries delivered in, and you can lay low for about 3 or 4 weeks and then get that Omicron specific booster. That's what I would do. So I guess I'm not giving any specific advice, and I try not to give like specific advice to my viewers anyway, because everybody's a person and everybody brings their own unique set of variables to the table. But what I'm trying to say is, I think that if you read these recommendations that come out by public health agencies, you end up getting these very oversimplified things that don't, it's kind of a disrespectful recommendation to the American public, in my opinion, to make something so oversimplified that it really serves maybe a quarter of the people, right? And 3/4 of the people it's not serving, because it's just assuming that we can't make these decisions. I do think it's important to keep track of the variables that you want to look at when you make your decision. Your own individual risk in terms of your health history. How likely are you to have a very severe case? And don't even tell me that people aren't getting severely ill if they're vaccinated and then they get Omicron, because they are. How likely are you going to be able to use either a monoclonal? Can you get that in your area, or Paxlovid? And Paxlovid has some other issues. I know many people get rebound with Paxlovid and feel very, very sick with it, but some people can't have it at all. Given the choice, if I could have it, I would take it. But some people can't have it because of medications that they're on, or whatever health history they bring to the table. So that's going to inform, that's part of your own personal risk criteria that you bring to the table. Then what about the people that you live with? How much control do you have environmentally? What about your work? How much control do you have there? Are you able to sort of be by yourself in an office? Can you wear an N95? Are you with a whole group of people all the time indoors? Are you in a place where people aren't masking? Are you in a place where people are masking? So your environment plays a really big role. Your health background, risk background, your environment, and then the infection rate in your area. And if you can really think about those things and then assign their relative weights, and then you can distill that pretty easily down into a good decision. Can I wait 3 weeks? Can I wait 4 weeks? Or do I really have to do something right now because I'm in a dangerous situation? Or maybe right now you're hanging low and you're sitting around at home, you're working remotely for a while, but in about a month and a half, you're going to be traveling. You might want to get a lot of bang for your buck out of a booster and have an Omicron specific booster if you're going to be traveling, especially if you're going to be in trains or planes, or you're going to be, in indoor settings. Again, if I could, then I would wait. So for me, again, far be it for me to disagree with the director of the CDC, but I will respectfully disagree on this issue. If I can wait for that Omicron specific booster and I'm not putting myself at excess risk in doing so, that's an if. Then I would wait for the Omicron specific booster. For those people who have had COVID just recently, I know there's guidance on waiting because you've essentially gotten a boost now. I don't think it's really that long like it used to be, but of course you don't want to go get a vaccine boost right away after having had the infection. The other thing that I will say is, for those of you, I know some of you have checked the antibody testing. The only one I really recommend is the one at LabCorp, because they use a scale of 0 to 25,000, which is a pretty precise scale. Unlike Quest, at least last I looked, they were using like this 1 to 10 thing. So 0 to 25,000, and it's not really clear exactly what correlates to immunity, but if you do check those antibodies every now and then, and it's like $6 to do that, you can get a sense of when it's going up, when it's going down, like what it looks like maybe 2 weeks after or a month after a vaccine or a boost. See what it looks like, and then when you're due and your 4 months is up, see where your antibodies are. It is documented that you do get a bigger boost of antibodies if it's come down more. So if you've got sort of a medium level of antibodies, you won't get quite as much of a kick from another boost. On the other hand, people could correctly rebuttal me and say, but any Omicron specific boost is better than what we have now, because right now we don't have any immunity unless we've had the infection to Omicron specific. So that is true. We don't have that variant, but so I'm not saying everybody go out there and check your antibodies. I'm just saying that if you happen to have been doing so, then you can put one more piece in that puzzle, check your antibodies and see where they are compared to last time, and feel pretty confident that you're going to get a good boost if they've come down low. I wouldn't let that stop me though. If I was due for a boost and I needed the boost, and in terms of my risk profile, and I had distilled all the other variables that I just talked about down into a decision that it's time for me to get this boost when it comes out, I would just go ahead and get it when it comes out. So I don't know if this was helpful or not. I know what isn't helpful is these all or nothing kinds of recommendations that we get right now from the CDC. I think the messaging is just really lacking. So I think it's just important to look at your individual circumstances, and even if you have to make a little chart on a piece of paper with those variables that I just stated, and figure out with you and the people you live with, because you are all affecting each other, what's going to work in terms of waiting just a couple of weeks or getting a boost right now if you're eligible for it. Now, in terms of when I am eligible, I'm not going to really worry too much. Like I said, if let's say only Moderna or only Pfizer is available at that time, because I think Moderna is going to be a little bit behind Pfizer, I'm not going to worry about that one bit. I'm going to get whichever one's around if there's only one. So yeah, so let me know what you guys are doing. If you've given this some thought, it's just extremely frustrating right now. And I'm just going to reiterate that we really need more of a national security approach to this instead of such an academic approach, because every single decision is getting distilled down to like what won't be a mistake. And honestly, that's not casting a wide enough net in terms of protecting people. That's just, yeah, I'm pretty convinced. That's just my thought. So let me know if this was helpful, and until next time, be well. Bye-bye.